Just when the Middle East seemed completely locked in a devastating spiral of direct war, the impossible happened. Late Sunday night, the United States and Iran finalized a massive preliminary peace deal to halt the conflict. President Trump declared it, all signed. Tehran is calling it a victory. Global oil prices immediately plunged by $4 a barrel. But behind the celebratory handshakes is a complex, high-stakes trade-off. This isn't just a ceasefire, it's a radical rewriting of regional power lines. Let's break down the exact conditions both sides just agreed to and the massive implications that are already sending shockwaves around the world. To understand this deal, you have to look at the immediate give and take. First, the waterways. The opening, the most critical state is the maritime. The US has agreed to lift a devastating naval blockade of Iranian ports. In exchange, Iran will immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz to unrestricted commercial shipping. 1/5 of the world's oil supply is suddenly flowing again. Second, the money. Iran gets a massive economic lifeline. They get immediate access to $12 billion in frozen overseas assets with a staggering $300 billion long-term regional reconstruction fund on the table. Third, the nuclear file. This was the ultimate sticking point. Iran has replenished never to build a nuclear weapon. They have agreed to a 60-day pause to iron out a long-term plan which includes potentially downbending their highly enriched uranium back to harmless civilian levels. But what's not in the deal is just as shocking as what is. Look closely at the text. Notice anything missing? Iran's ballistic missile program. Despite fierce protests from Israel, the final agreement contains zero restrictions on Iran's massive missile stockpile. Furthermore, there are no mandates for regime change, no surrender clauses, and no immediate permanent dismantlement of Iran's deeply buried nuclear facilities. Essentially, the deal hits the reset button, returning the region to the pre-war status quo rather than completely disarming the Islamic Republic. So what are the real-world implications? They depend entirely on who you ask. For the global economy, it's a massive sigh of relief. Inflation risks are easing as shipping lanes are clear. For the Arab Gulf states like the UAE, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, this is a huge win. They bore the brunt of the proxy attacks and economic chaos and now can breathe easy. For Israel and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this deal is a bitter pill. Netanyahu has openly resisted pulling back from the preoccupied zones in Lebanon, arguing that leaving Iran's missile network and core nuclear infrastructure intact leaves an existential threat right on Israel's doorstep. Right now, the world has a ceasefire, but the real clock starts now. The next 60 days of technical negotiations will determine if this is a lasting blueprint for peace or just a tactical pause before a much larger final confrontation.